Okay, so the inequality that you have reads 6x squared plus x is greater than or equal to 2. Okay, so first I'm going to subtract the 2 into the other side. So you'll have 6x squared plus x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 0. Now, if you factor this side of the inequality, you could factor this trinomial into this pair of binomials. If you go through it using techniques of factoring, you'll get 3x plus 2 times 2x minus 1. So this trinomial here factors down into this, and you have this still greater than or equal to 0. Okay? So now what I'll do is, I have this factor here, and I have this factor here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to set each of these individually, set them equal to 0. So the first one would read 3x plus 2 equals 0, and then I'll give it some room, and then I'll write the other binomial, 2x minus 1, and I'll also set that equal to 0. So now I have two small equations. What I'll do now is I'm going to solve each of these two small equations. So for this one, I'll subtract 2. So 3x is equal to negative 2. And then if I divide by 3, x is equal to a negative 2/3. Back over for this one, I'll add 1 and then divide by 2. So plus 1 plus 1. 2x is equal to 1, right? And so now I'll divide by 2. So x is equal to 1/2. So these are what we call the roots. Okay, these are what we call the roots. So now I'm going to open up a number line. Right, so this is my number line. And what I'll do is I'm going to chop up the number line at this location and at this location. So this one comes first on the number line because it's negative. So just pretend that right there, that's negative 2/3. Okay? So then you'd have to walk over a little bit, and maybe like right there is 1/2. So what we have now is this number line has now been divided into 3 intervals. You have this portion in the middle, you have this bit which goes that way on forever, and you have from here on this way forever. Now I have to pick numbers that live in each of these 3 intervals. So if I look at the middle one, I need a number that's between negative 2/3 and positive 1/2. What I'll do is I'll just pick the number 0, because that lives between these two numbers. Now something that lives in this interval, something that's before negative 2/3 would be something like negative 2, right? Or negative 1, but I'll just pick negative 2. Now I'm going to circle these guys because I'm going to test them in a second. So something that lives in here, something that lives past 1/2, would be like 1. So I have 3 test values. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take my first test value, negative 2, and I'm going to plug it in right there into our factored inequality, right? So I'm going to take negative 2, and I'm going to plug it in right here and right there. Let me do the work on this side. So that would read 3 times 2, no, negative 2, right? 3 times negative 2 plus 2 times 2 times negative 2 minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. Right? So all I did was I rewrote this one. I rewrote this inequality, but instead of these x's, I plugged in these negative 2's. Let me see what I get out of this. So that's negative 6 plus 2 is negative 4 times, that's negative 4 minus 1 is negative 5, greater than or equal to 0. Negative 4 times negative 5 is positive 20, greater than or equal to 0. Now this is a statement that it's true, right? It's a true statement. So what happens is, this is a true statement, and it came from me plugging in negative 2. So if I go back to my number line, this negative 2 was a success. Okay? So that means everything that lives in here is good. Everything that lives in there is good. Now the way you express all the numbers that live in here, well, I mean, think of this as an interval, and it goes this way. It starts from way over on that side, from negative infinity, all the way up to negative 2/3. I'll show you what I mean about these symbols. Now, let me take the next test value, 0, and I'm going to take 0, and I'm going to plug it in to this guy, again, just like I did with the negative 2. So let me go back to this side. Okay, so now let me plug in 0 in for those x's. So 3 times 0 plus 2 times 2 times 0 minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. That's 0 plus 2 is 2. 0 minus 1 is negative 1, greater than or equal to 0. That's negative 2 is greater than or equal to... So this statement is... it's false. That means that wherever the 0 lives is no good. Now the 0 lived where? The 0 lived in between these two values, right? So this is no good. Now I'm going to take the next test value, number 1, and again, plug it into here and here, just like I did with the previous two test values. So that would read something like, that would read 3 times 1 plus 2 times 2 times 1 minus 1 is greater than or equal to 0. That's 3 plus 2 is 5 times, what is that, 2 minus 1 is 1, right? 2 minus 1 is 1, greater than or equal to 0, so 5 is greater than or equal to 0. So again, this is true, this is good. So wherever the 1 lived, that's also a success. So the 1 lived in the interval, or in the space, that begins at the 1/2 and that goes on forever to positive infinity. So down here, let's say from 1/2 all the way up into infinity. Now the reason I write these brackets is because we have, from the very beginning, we have greater than or equal to, right? So since we have equality, I write brackets. If we did not have equality, I would have written parentheses the way I did around the infinities. Now the infinities always have parentheses because you can't really contain infinity. So let's see. So this was a success, right? This was good, which led to this interval, and this was always good, or this was good, which gave this interval here. So now we're going to unite. We're going to unite these two intervals, and this is my solution. If you look at the original problem, you were looking for some number x, such that when you pick that x and plug it into here, you'll get a number that is greater than or equal to 2. Okay? So all the x's that satisfy this inequality, all of those x's live in this interval, in this set. Okay? Now this is some hard stuff, so if you have any questions, just feel free to let me know, okay?